As a maker, how do you price your work? I'm going to show you how I price my work as a woodworker. Then I'll dive deeper into pricing to show you the business side of being a maker. I'm Scott, and welcome back to Home Improvement Woodworking. I've got a business degree, and I've also been running my part-time custom woodworking business since 1999. In that time, I've learned a lot about pricing, what works for me and what doesn't. Just like learning your craft, pricing is something that takes practice to get better at. I'm going to start off by showing you a practical example of a project from my shop. I've just finished building this vintage ski shelf for a customer. They brought me 3 skis and asked me to build a corner shelf for them. What I did was I started off by understanding what the needs were so I could design the project. Once I had the design, I could then work out the material costs and the labor costs. This is my order for this project. I blocked off the customer information just for privacy. Here you can see I quoted the material as $65, the finish, which is spar varnish, for $25, and then the labor for $180. That brings the total project to $270, and I take a 50% deposit, so the deposit was $135. The labor is broken down when I go through and create a list of the activities I need to complete the project. So I allocated an hour for shopping, cutting shelves, profiling the edge, patching, finishing, and assembly. So I estimated this project at 6 hours. I used a rate of $30 an hour for this project, and that gets me to $180. I'll touch upon this labor rate a little bit further in this video. Quoting the cost of your project is only half of the work. When I'm doing my work, I track my work on a clipboard. What I do is I write the order number down and make sure I track every task that I'm doing and how long it takes. That way I can total up the total labor I put into the project and compare that with my estimate. When I compare my estimate with my actuals, I can start to compare and see where the difference is. Here in material I had estimated $65. I was able to make some wise material choices and actually get that down to $29. The finish was practically the same. And then the labor, the actual time I used on this was 9.25 hours. But I had estimated 6 hours. So where I've saved some money on the material, that goes towards labor, but I'm still off on the labor. And when I look at where the challenge was, it was really around refinishing these skis, filling the holes, staining the holes, and finishing them. That's where I needed to do better on my estimate. So overall here, I'm out by about $60 on the overall cost of the project. I can't stress enough the importance of tracking your actual costs. This is what tells you project by project whether you're making money or losing money. You don't want to wait until the end of a month, the end of a quarter, or the end of a year to figure out that you're losing money. For me, this isn't the fun part about being a maker, but it's a really important part of running any business. There are a few other ways you can price out your work. I'll roll out some paper and describe those to you. Material times X refers to applying a multiplication factor to your material. So if I had a project where I had $200 worth of material and I was doing material times 2, that would be $400 for my price. This is only good where you've got material consistently a portion of your costs. So for most people this doesn't work. A daily rate would be, for example, I want to charge $500 a day on a project. This is good if you're estimating for weeks of work. But there's too much margin for error for projects that only need hours or days of work. You can copy prices from your competition, but it's not good business practice as you can work yourself into business failure. You need to know your costs. I advocate using time and material to work out your pricing. It takes practice, but it's the work you need to put into building a profitable business. I've taken formal project management training, and in that I learned how to take a project and break it down into small tasks. We can estimate small tasks much easier than large ones, and much more accurately. So start off by making a list of all those items you would need to do in order to complete a project. Don't forget things such as shopping, designing, and even delivery. Once you have a list of tasks, Estimate how much time it will take to complete each task. As a general rule of thumb, if I have a task that will take more than 4 hours, I break it down into smaller parts so I have a more accurate estimate and details to track my time against. Don't just look at this as work for pricing. This can help you with your scheduling and even keep you on track in your work. See if you can beat those estimates and make it even more profitable. Let's assume you're building a quote right now for a customer. You've done the work to figure out the material and the labor in terms of hours. But how much do you charge per hour? This is where a lot of people get confused, and it's because the answer is different for every person. Let me guide you through the process. The first question is, how much do you want to earn? As a general rule of thumb, multiply your desired hourly labor rate by 2,000 to get a rough ballpark of annual earnings. For example, if you earn $10 an hour, you would earn $20,000 a year. $20 an hour would give you $40,000 a year. This assumes you can bill 40 hours per week. Once you decide how much you want to earn per hour, then you need to add something called overhead. This is the cost of running your business per year. Things such as insurance, rent, utilities, cost of running a website, marketing, telephone, internet, all of these things add up. And it's difficult to try and figure out what that is if you're just starting out. So let me walk you through that. These are all the things that I pay for in my overhead. These are things I can't charge customers for directly. I charge a 50% overhead charge on top of my desired pay. So where I'm charging a customer $30 per hour, $10 of that goes towards overhead, and $20 is what I take in pay. If you're trying to figure out your overhead costs for the first time, create a list of all the things that you would do to run your business in a year. And then you can go through and estimate the costs of each of those. It might take some research, but it will get you closer to what your annual costs are. Then what you do is take that annual cost and put that across how many hours you would anticipate working in a year. Let's use an example of $5,000 of overhead per year. If you're looking at working 10 hours per week for 50 weeks, that's 500 hours of work. So 5,000 divided by 500 hours works out to be $10 an hour for your overhead costs. To give you some practical examples, the rates that I use are a minimum of $30 per hour. I use up to $60 per hour, and I'll explain why pricing can change a little bit further in this video. FTMC did a pricing survey of wood shops across the US and Canada, and what they found was shop rates of anywhere between $35 an hour and $100 an hour, with the average being $50 to $60 per hour. Now you know all the parts to pricing your work using an hourly labor rate. But what about material? For material costs, I charge my customers the retail rate. Some people advocate marking up on material, but I don't like doing that. I quote my customers material and labor. If they look into the material that I'm using and they see that I've got astronomical prices, I'm losing credibility with potential customers. So I charge the retail rate. Now, I might be paying retail, I might be paying wholesale. If I'm paying wholesale, then I get the added benefit of more profit in the job. But for me, pricing material at the retail level is really the best way to go to start building that solid customer relationship. To make things faster for frequently used items, I've got a cheat sheet here that gives me all the pricing. Don't forget to add in your taxes when you're doing this. The last step in effective pricing is ensuring you're making a good pricing decision. What's the value of your service? Asking yourself what a customer would pay for something is a good sense check. Look at the competition in your marketplace and see what they're selling for. As a general rule of thumb, if you sell in a city environment, you can charge more. If you're selling in a rural environment, you have to sell it for less. If you're selling on the internet, you're at the mercy of global prices. Let's look at an example of a potter selling her handmade vases for $45, but similar prices are selling for $60 in a nearby store. This justifies an increase in the price. But if we've got imports that are selling for $12 a vase, then we've got a problem. This is where you need to switch from your maker hat to your business hat and ask yourself if it really makes sense to pursue making this product. If you know the value of your product, you can avoid some expensive mistakes and also optimize your pricing. You need to know your costs, you need to know your competition, and you need to know your market. If you get all these three, you'll have success. Some words of wisdom: expect to lose some of the jobs you price for customers. If you're not, you're pricing too low. I love to build things. This is my passion. I hope this has given you insights into how you can price as a maker. If you want to hear more topics from us on the business front of being a maker, please leave your comments below. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, check out Made for Profit. John and Brad share some great advice with the maker community. Until next time, enjoy your time in the workshop.